Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, Jay Fallon. Thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope. Well, so this story about the grandmother here in Australia, great grandmother, I believe she was actually, who was tasered by police in New South Wales. New South Wales police officer tasered the great grandmother, Clare Nowland. Obviously, we all know that Clare Nowland hit her head, fell back after being tasered, hit her head, and subsequently died a few days later. So, court documents have been released. Court documents allege what the police officer has said. So I'm going to run through this story with you, give you my opinion. I read the whole story and I thought, you can see issues. I'll just give you my perspective on what happened. So let's go with this story. There she is, Clare Nowland. So yeah, headline: New South Wales police officer said, "Nah, bugger it," before tasering Clare Nowland. Court documents allege. So prosecutors will allege Officer Christian White's actions were grossly disproportionate and excessive after 95-year-old grandmother died after the tasering incident. So prosecutors in their case against the New South Wales police officer who allegedly tasered 95-year-old Clare Nowland will allege the officer's actions were grossly disproportionate and excessive given the great-grandmother's age and ability, according to court documents. The revelation comes in a police statement of facts on the incident released by the New South Wales Supreme Court on Wednesday, the first time the full details of the alleged tasering of the great-grandmother have been revealed. The statement also says the police preliminary report found the circumstances of the incident did not meet the threshold for the officer to discharge a taser. Wow. Okay. That was pretty obvious, but that's good. Nowland died in hospital in May after she was allegedly tasered by Senior Constable Christian White after she was found at her home in Yallumby Lodge nursing home in Cooma while carrying a knife. After subsequent failed efforts by two police officers to convince Nolan to drop the knife as she approached on her walking frame, the officer accused of tasering her said, "Stop, just." There's a brief pause, I assume, and says, "Nah, bugger it," before deploying his taser. So White is charged with recklessly causing grievous bodily harm, assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, and common assault. The court documents outlined in detail the alleged events that led up to the moment Nowland was tasered. So let's go through these details because there's some glaring issues with this. So at about 3:10 a.m., so 3:10, 17th of May, documents say the registered nurse on duty at the aged care facility found Nowland in the corridor on her walking frame carrying two knives. The nurse suspected she had found those in the kitchen. After the nurse requested Nowland drop the knives, the great-grandmother replied no. The documents alleged Nowland was then found holding two knives while standing at the foot of another resident's bed. One staff member left to call Nolan's family, but failed to reach them. She was then allegedly advised after a phone call to the facilities manager to call an ambulance as they believed Nowland should be taken to hospital and sedated. Around this time, Nowland is said to have thrown a knife at one of the carers. It missed and landed on the floor. That's probably because she's 95 years old. She's very frail. She uses a walking frame. She can't throw a knife properly. Ambulance officers requested police assistance. White and another police officer arrived at the nursing home. The court documents alleged Nowland. Now, before I go on, how relieved do you think this other officer is that her name is not being thrown about in these in the newspaper? I got it, she must be very relieved. Anyway, White is copping the brunt of this. So the court documents allege Nowland was seated at a desk, so seated in an office chair with a knife and torch in her hand and her walking frame next to her. So they say the knife and torch in her hand, which seems to suggest that the knife and torch in one hand, together in one hand. The court documents allege she was repeatedly requested by an ambulance officer to drop the knife. She allegedly raised the knife towards the assisting police officer, and then she walked towards the doorway, in quotations, very slowly, using her walking frame. It was then that White allegedly directed his taser toward Nolan's chest for the first time, activating a display of lights and a laser pointer, and directed her to stop. So if you've never used a taser before or seen one, so you've got a little switch on the side. You generally use your thumb to activate that. So you push the switch up, and then the little laser pointer goes on. It'll be directed at yeah, where you're targeting, and you can see, if you're the person being tasered, you can see it coming straight out and where it's where the laser's hitting you. It's a little daunting. I think it definitely for criminal elements, it definitely makes them stop and reconsider things. That's in my experience anyway. Continuing on, but the court documents alleges Noland did not respond. She probably didn't even understand what the whole threat of a taser, what the taser was. Didn't even understand this threat. I bet you at 95 years old, would she even know about tasers? Anyway, she didn't respond. The assisting officer put her foot out to stop the walker as Nowland reached the doorway. Nowland allegedly raised the knife again, causing the assisting officer to move backwards. The court documents allege the police and ambulance officer continued to encourage Nowland to put the knife down. White allegedly says to Nowland, "Claire, stop now. See this? This is a taser. Drop it now. Drop it. This is your first warning." Once Nowland crossed the doorway, White allegedly urged Nowland to again stop and activated the taser's visual and audio warning after the assisting officer advised him to do so. The assisting officer advised him to do so. Okay. And her name's not on this. Well, it's not being reported here. Anyway, after Nowland did not respond, White allegedly said, "See, you are going to get tasered. Claire, stop." Again, would she even understand what tasering is? The court documents alleged Nowland raised the knife again after the assisting police officer attempted to block her walker. Nowland then allegedly stopped, raised the knife towards the police officer, and remained stationary. White allegedly tasered her from 1.5 to 2 meters away, causing Nowland to fall back and strike her head on the wooden floor. According to the court documents, the ambulance officers rushed forward to provide medical assistance and secured the knife. Afterward, Nolan was taken to the local hospital. So let's get into it. These are the three areas where I think these officers failed. Again, this is just my opinion. It's easy to sit back and judge from the comfort of the lounge chair or the office or whatever. However, there does seem to be some glaring issues in the narrative. So first thing I think is there was no threat assessment done. There doesn't seem to be a threat assessment done. Put yourself in a situation, you've got a threat coming at you. You've got to be able to think, assess the threat. How much of a threat is it to me? And what can I do to counter that threat? Do I need to retreat? Do I need to pull back and wait for support to come along? Do I need to cower and hide? Do I have the skills to be able to counter that threat? Can I get behind something? Can I get protection? There's heaps of different things, but it doesn't seem that they did any kind of threat assessment. You walk into the room, person with a knife, but immediately that person is 95 years old. That person is very frail. That person lacks the freedom of movement, doesn't have the mobility that a young person has, doesn't have the strength that a younger person does, doesn't seem to have the mental ability, cognitive ability that a young person has anymore. So there was no real, it doesn't seem to be that there was an assessment of the kind of a threat that Clare Nowland really was to them. 95-year-old woman coming at me with a knife. Can I quickly step to the left and maybe grab their arm, maybe grab their hand to grab it out of the knife, or maybe step around behind and put an arm in behind their arm and get them in a bit of a bear hold, a bear hug, or some kind of a hold anyway. So I don't think there was a threat assessment done, or if it was done, it wasn't done very well at all. I think there was a complete lack of situational awareness. You're inside a nursing home, you're dealing with a very old person who's very frail, like I said, lack of mobility, has a walking frame with her. And what else was around? Who else was she going to harm? Can I take countermeasures so that if she does slash at me with the knife, I can protect myself with it, I can protect others with it? Situational awareness, what else is in the room? Obviously, no one thought about, hey, tasering her, if she falls back, is she going to hit her head? What else could happen after I taser her? So all those things weren't done, it would seem. Also, there seemed to be target fixation or object fixation. You just reading through this account and what everyone was said, everyone was so heavily focused on the knife. No one was for a second taking a step back just to breathe. And I don't mean physically necessarily take a step back, but just taking a moment just to breathe, take in the situation, look at the whole surroundings, look at exactly what is happening. Maybe not be so fixated on the knife that's all you're talking about. Stop, drop the knife, drop the knife. You need to take a step back, have that situational awareness, be able to assess what kind of a threat this person actually is, and be able to think about other things other than just the knife. They seemed to have a definite fixation on the knife rather than thinking about anything else that was around her, around them. And then there was no thought into the outcomes, no thought into, okay, I've been in situations before where you have to quickly run through, if I do this, what can happen? Just within it sounds a bit weird, but you're doing within a split second, you are racing through scenarios in your mind. If I do this, what's the possibility? What are the possible outcomes? What's the outcome? What's the worst thing that can happen if I do this? What's the best thing that can happen if I do this? What are some other things, or if I do this and the possible worst outcome happens, how can I try and prevent that happening? There doesn't seem to be anything like that running through their minds. I think a large part of the blame should be put at the feet of the assisting officer, because all she was doing, like I said, fixated on the knife, fixated on the weapon, but not taking a moment to breathe and look and think, well, this isn't really a huge threat because we could wrestle that knife out of her hand, just my opinion. And maybe if I get in behind her, I could wrestle it out. Maybe I will hurt her because I'm going to grab her arm violently, but that is a lot better to being tasering a 95-year-old woman. So there, that's my three things, I think. Lack of situational awareness. They didn't do a proper threat assessment, and they were fixated on the target. That's what I think happened there. It'd be interesting to see the outcome of this court case. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire. Nothing's gonna stand on my ups and tears. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna stop me now. No more deals to be done. No more selling out my soul just to focus on the